So welcome to Hawkridge Systems Webinar Wednesday e-learning series. Today we're going to be talking about what's new in Enterprise PDM 2015. My name is Jordan Lemley and I'm a PDM specialist with Hawkridge Systems. Been here for a couple of years working in the data management division, so working with EPDM very closely, doing implementations and demonstrations and services. So you might have seen me or heard me on a webinar before. And today what we're going to talk about is the new features that I really like in 2015. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. There's a lot of new topics, new features inside Enterprise PDM 2015. Some of the big ones focused around user interface changes. So this would be updating the copy tree UI and some other UI changes that we'll talk about. Another big one is the Microsoft Office add-in. Being able to check in and check out documents into EPDM straight from the Microsoft Office interface, and we'll talk about that. As well as duplicate file warnings, getting a warning if you're adding a file into the vault that already exists, that same name, as well as looking at private state files. We'll talk about what that is in a little bit, as well as the Web 2 interface, which is pretty exciting new addition to Enterprise PDM, giving you access to your vault via mobile devices or any web browser, really. So pretty cool integration there. We'll talk about that towards the end. But first I want to talk about this move tree. So if you've been familiar with Enterprise PDM before, you always knew that you could do what's called a copy tree, which is essentially like a pack and go for EPDM. So for example, if I took some files in here that I've got in assembly, for example, I could go to Tools and Copy Tree. And that would allow me to copy the files from one location to another and choose which files are going to be brand new and which ones are going to stay in the original location and be just references to the new assembly rather than moving all of them to one new location. But I don't know if you've ever wanted to move a bunch of files to a new directory before. I know it's kind of a common request to be able to say, I've got this assembly and it's got many different parts and sub-assemblies and they're all scattered throughout many different directories inside the vault. I just want to move all of those into one directory rather than having to go into each directory and do a cut and paste from there to the new location. I just want to move everything to one location. Well, in 2015, they added this new move tree functionality, which allows us to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and find an assembly in here that I'm going to move. For example, find a better example in here. Okay, so for example, I've got this assembly, and it's got all these different components and projects, and I want to move this from one directory to another. All I need to do is select Move Tree, and it will gather up all of my parts into one interface, and I can specify where I want to move this directory to. So press Browse. I want to send this to 2014 design data. And what's nice is I can rename these files or filter. If I wanted to take a look at all my assemblies all at once, it'll go ahead and filter all those results right here using the filter. And I can continue to add those filters as I like. So file type, selected for move, path name is changed or not. So lots of different filters that you can use for drilling down into the different files that you've got selected. So it looks like I got some of these that are already checked out. So I'll go ahead and leave those in the original location. but I can move the rest of these using this move tree. And it's got some extra settings up here that I can toggle on and off, whether that's going to be including the drawings or not, regenerating serial numbers, a lot of the same things that we saw with the copy tree, as well as the ability to edit in here the destination folder path if I wanted to change the folder that I'm sending these files to individually. I can click on each one of those and it'll give me an option to browse to that file location, as well as change the file name as I'm changing the directory location. So pretty nice functionality there. I'll go ahead and click move, and it will move all those documents to the new location, with the exception of the files that are currently checked out. I'm going to take all those files and move them, make sure all the references are aligned and maintained, so I don't have to do a cut and paste of each individual file. And this holds true of any relationships for any files that are outside of this particular folder. So if I had documents sitting in another folder, those will get grabbed in this process as well. If I go into 2014 design data, I see all of my files have been successfully moved there. And if I look at 2012, you see that the ones that were checked out, those are still sitting out here in this, or rather those ones weren't related to that assembly. So that's why they didn't move. But the move tree allows us to move all those documents all at once, which is pretty nice. And then one thing that you'll notice in 2014 as well, in addition to all the, or going along with all of the UI changes that we saw, is they've updated the copy tree. So it looks a lot like that move tree we just saw. You'll see a lot more of a kind of table format for these documents, kind of going along with the theme of Windows 8, kind of what it reminds me of. All of those different tables, and they added the same filter tool that we saw in the move tree. That's available in this copy tree as well. So if you're wanting to filter through what you're copying based on extension or file name or what have you, those are all valid search criteria that you can use for the copy tree. So that is the move tree and the copy tree. Next, we're going to talk about the UI changes that they've made to Enterprise PDM. So one of the things I already mentioned with the copy tree is the more tabular format. So you can see that here in the Contains tab and the Where Used tab, as well as the Bill of Materials looks like that as well. So they've updated these Bill of Materials to make it a little more tabular for you to visualize a little better and create those lines in between the documents. But probably one of my favorite additions is the ability of Enterprise PDM to add this version number column and have the icon for whether the file is local, or whether the local file is the most current file, or whether it's out of date. So for example, I can see this version number column that tells me that I've got the latest version of this assembly on my local machine. If I didn't have it, if I cleared the local cache, I would see this little question mark over a hard drive saying you don't have any local file for this assembly. And so I can go ahead and do my get latest version and get the version of that assembly and grab it to my machine, and it shows me that I have what's equal to the vault. They've also updated these icons from the previous version of Enterprise PDM. So it used to be a little green up arrow and a little red down arrow. Now it's a little time clock. So if I do a get version, get a previous version of this file, you'll see a little red clock icon indicating I have an older version of this file than the latest version that exists inside the vault. So I can go ahead and get the latest version of that. And if I check out a file and make a change to it, edit the data card here for a second. Change vendor, save. You'll see that it updates with green, indicating that I have a newer version of the document than exists inside the vault. So I can check that change in. So they've updated some of those little interface items. They updated the get latest version, and they also updated the check-in and check-out icons. They used to be a red and blue icon. Now they're a check-out and check-in icon. So check out and check in. So that's a little bit of the UI changes if you went into SOLIDWORKS 2015 and took a look at the EPDM add-in in there for 2015. You're going to see those changes to the interface as well. Options and view setting, and here's those icons that we were seeing earlier, and an explanation of what each one of them does. So that's also contained in the What's New document. So that's one of the really great features of EPDM 2015, I think, because now you can see just at a glance as you're browsing through your Vault view whether you have the latest version of the file without having to click on the version tab in order to see that information. You can just see it at a glance looking at this version column. Super nice and convenient. So we talked about the move tree and the copy tree and some of the UI changes. Another big feature in EPDM 2015 is the Microsoft Office add-in. So in 2014, they released the Microsoft Office add-in for the first time, but it was a separate download, and so it wasn't contained inside the actual install media for 2014. It was a separate download process, and installation still worked, but it wasn't in the install media. Now, with 2015, the Microsoft Office add-in is in the install media, and so you can just select that checkbox to add the add-in in the same place that you add SOLIDWORKS. But just a refresher of what this Office add-in does, it's pretty powerful and pretty nice, especially for those users that are editing Microsoft Office documents. A lot of times they maybe don't necessarily check out the file first before they begin editing it, and then they realize that they're editing the read-only copy. Now you can check the file in after opening the read-only copy, or check it out and then make changes and check it back in. So how does it work? Well, if I take a new Word document or Excel document, it doesn't really matter. Once I have the EPDM add-in added, you'll see that I've got an EPDM tab in my Microsoft Office environment. You'll notice that all of these items are grayed out. That's because this document is brand new. I haven't added it into the Vault, so obviously it's not going to have any Vault functionality until I actually add it into the Vault. So the same way that you would add a file into SOLIDWORKS, you can either save this out to somewhere on your hard drive and copy and paste it into the Vault, or you can just save it directly into the Vault, which is what I'll do. So I'll just go to Computer, find my Vault, maybe go to Purchasing, save this document into my Vault. And now I've got the option to check the file out, get the latest version, show the data card. All of those tabs are available inside my Microsoft Office environment. So if I look at the file there in, here's my file. You can go ahead and check that in from there, or I could open it read-only. Let me see if it's a read-only document. So I'll go and check this file out. And I can make my changes, take a look at the data card, add a new number. Okay. Save, check in my file. And now I've got that document has been updated with my changes and checked in at the latest version. So I have control of my Microsoft Office documents inside the Office interface. So that includes pushing it through a workflow, showing the data card, getting a previous version, checking it in and out, all of that in Microsoft Office. That's Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all of those types of documents now have this EPDM add-in integrated into Microsoft Office. So especially useful for those users that are using Microsoft Office quite a bit. All right, so next on our list is duplicate file warning. So in EPDM, we always have the ability to go into file types in the admin tool and go down to the particular file type you're interested in, mainly SOLIDWORKS. Right-click and go to Properties, and there's this option that says Do Not Allow Duplicate File Names for this file extension. So you click that, and it doesn't allow users to add files with that extension that has the same name. So I can't have duplicate SOLIDWORKS part names inside my vault now. And that was really nice. However, sometimes you would add a file, and because that duplicate file name check only happened when you tried to check the file in, you might add the file without knowing that someone else had that file name. So what they did in 2015 is they updated that checking process to check for duplicate file names when you first add a file into the vault, not when you check it in, but when you add it. And then also added some additional information for the user when they try to check the file, or when they try to add the file, so that it tells you where the other files that have that same name are located and gives you links to those as well. So, for example, if I go into my engineering folder and I try to add a file, let's say I take this 201.835 and copy that and send it to somewhere outside my vault real quick. And then I try and place that into references folder. I'm going to take this file that already has a name like that inside the vault and copy it in. And immediately I get a dialog. It tells me this file in this directory is a duplicate of these other existing files. And it shows me where the other files that have that same name exist. So I can see those different areas inside the vault. If I want to, and I can export this list to a CSV document, so I can document all of the duplicates inside my vault that have the same extension and same file name, which is nice. And then I can either change the name of my current file, or I can go back and change the other documents, or figure out what the discrepancy is between these documents, which is pretty nice. Now, private state files. So this is also new in EPDM. Before you add a file into the vault, before you check it in for the first time, when you add it, it's going into your local cache, your local vault view. So only you can see that that file exists. And then the admin can also see that that file exists, but no other users can see that that file exists. So you might have added it into the vault and it looks like you have it, but someone else that's browsing into the vault is not going to be seeing this because you haven't checked it in yet. Well, in 2015, they added a new feature for private state files that allows other users to see the files that you have in your local cache that you haven't checked into the vault. It will mark those files as private state, basically a file that has been added to someone's local view but doesn't exactly, hasn't been checked into the vault and doesn't exist there yet. This can help you to see any kind of files that people say they've added but they actually haven't checked in, gives people visibility to that in the vault. So that's controlled through a new permission under users and groups. So I go to users and take a look at my login. I can go to folder permissions, and there's an option in there that says may see files before initial check-in, private state. So if I go in as someone else, let's say Mark, and log in as Mark, go to my vault, I'll go into references, create a new file, new text document, and log out and log back in as myself. Go down. I'm going to see the items that the admin user and Mark has added, but are not exactly checked into the vault. So I get this little icon that says that file does not exist yet inside EPDM. It says that in the version tab, it tells me this information is not available because the file has never been checked in. And I see the private state icon or text there as well. So what this allows me to do is basically see everything that other people have in their local view that they haven't checked in yet, which can help eliminate some confusion that you might have run into before with EPDM. All right, so that's a duplicate file warnings and private state files. Now here's the big one, Web 2. Web 2 is the new web interface for Enterprise PDM. It's browser agnostic, meaning that you can use it in any browser, in their Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, Safari. Anyone with a web browser, even on a mobile device, they can access the vault as long as you set up the web server. So it gives you web access to the contents of your file vault. So I'm going to go ahead and log into my server and log into the vault. This is what the login screen is going to look like. And I'll use my username, or I'll log in as admin rather. And I log in. Like I said, it doesn't matter if I'm using mobile or web. I can see what the mobile looks like by clicking on this mobile version down here. And this kind of looks like your iPhone interface. You can go back to the full site right here. But essentially what it allows you to do is browse through your documents. Design data. There's my assembly. And from there I can preview it, look at the data card that contains the where used. There's the preview. Data card contains what are all the references for this file, where else is this used. I can check it out, download it to my local machine, change state, push it through a workflow, that kind of thing, all from this web interface, which is really nice and convenient. As far as availability for this Web 2, you can see that I'm running Web 2 beta. So if you wanted to try out this Web 2 interface, it is available in beta. You just have to contact your VAR, in this case Hawk Ridge System, and request access to the beta. It's not recommended for production use right now. They are targeting the release of SP2 for the full Web 2 release. And even when they do that full Web 2 release, it will still be a request process whereby you request the Web 2 files from your value-added reseller, in this case, Ockridge Systems, to get access to that. But once it is released, it should be a lot of useful applications for your environment. This does not require a local installation, so users that are needing access to files inside the vault, but you don't want to worry about having IT install and update and uninstall all these different clients on local machines. They can just access the web server at any time, and they don't need to have the right service pack installed. They can just go to this the server name and access the files on the network, which is really convenient for IT as well. Another caveat is that this isn't necessarily intended for remote SOLIDWORKS users. You can download and upload SOLIDWORKS files from here, absolutely. But if you have documents stored in a lot of different areas inside the vault, there's some limitations that come with loading those back in. But in general, download and upload is really solid, and you can use this to have a vendor upload their information. You take it into the vault, do whatever process you need to do with it, and then send it back out, change state, and they can download it from the web client as well. So lots of capabilities here that have been added with this Web 2 interface. Really excited about this coming down the pipeline. So like I said, that should be released in SP2, which should be around January, February timeframe. All right, and last but not least, there's a couple other things that have changed with Enterprise PDM 2015, one of which is they've moved the licensing model from the little text file that you used to get from SOLIDWORKS to an SNL model. So now, if you go to license, your license is actually controlled on SOLIDWORKS Network License Manager, which means that the licenses are tied to your serial number and not to a text file that you download. This can allow you some really useful ways to control the use of your licenses. So limiting one user to always having access and then freeing up other users to share from a pool, and kind of specify how you want to use those licenses, whereas before you couldn't at all. So that's one thing to note that has changed with the licensing model in 2015, is that they've moved to that SNL licensing. And the new 2015 installation media comes with that SNL licensing manager and the install media, so you can just add that as a component, and you'll be able to install the SNL on your EPDM server, tie it to your EPDM serial number. If you have any questions about what your EPDM serial number is, it's not the same as your SOLIDWORKS serial number, just contact tech support at Ockridge and we can let you know what your number is and get you set up there with your new licensing. Also, in 2015, they added separate move and delete permissions. So before, in EPDM, when you tried to move or delete a file, those were one complete permission. Now, in 2015, you have a separate delete file and delete folder permission, and a separate move file and move folder. So maybe you want to move files, but you don't want to have users given delete access. And before, you could either give them all or nothing. Now you can choose whether you're going to give them move and delete, or just move, or just delete, or neither. So now they broke those out into their own separate permissions, which is really nice as well. And then the final new feature that I really like in 2015 is parallel approval data mapping. What that means is if you have any parallel approvals set up in your workflows where you can map different users. You need 2 out of 3 managers to approve a document in order to get it to pass. Before, you could only add 1 variable into the data card or the title block when they did the parallel approval process. So for example, user initials. Now you can do that for multiple users using the parallel data mapping. So you can set up a new role for managers. Require 2 out of 3 users. And if I want to set an action like set variable, I can set that variable and I can use mapped approvers and say management and add that value into the data card. So basically it allows multiple managers and multiple reviewers to add their initials or name and date to the review process in that parallel transition, which is nice. All right, so those are the brand new features of Enterprise PDM 2015. Thank you for attending our webinar today. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them through the webinar interface. I'll go ahead and stick around here to answer any of those questions. Once again, a reminder of the upgrade process. When you're upgrading to 2015 from 2014, you obviously need to take a SQL database backup. And if you have any questions about that, you can contact our tech support to kind of help walk you through that upgrade process and all the requirements that you need. And then you also want to make sure that as you're upgrading from 2014 to 2015 that you lead with EPDM, that you upgrade EPDM first and then upgrade SOLIDWORKS, because EPDM is backwards compatible but not forwards compatible with SOLIDWORKS. So EPDM 2015 can accommodate SOLIDWORKS 2014 and 2013, but it will not accommodate 2015 if you're using EPDM 2014. So make sure to upgrade the EPDM to 2015 first before you do SOLIDWORKS.